Good afternoon, Tatiana. Can I just interrupt for a few minutes? I apologize for joining in all of you late. It was again technical glitch. So all that I was supposed to do, Tatiana has done it. And thanks a lot, Tatiana, first of all, for the initiative to bring this much awaited Russian-India dialogue and cultural exchange theme that you have brought in for us in India from Global Language Center and the students of Jindal University, as well as all of you who have joined us, Professor Vladimir, Anna, Nikita, Vlada. We are so excited and really happy to welcome you to our webinar. And I'm really thankful, grateful to all of you that you could join in. And again, I apologize for the technical glitches. I hope you will understand. Here we had a very stormy morning and with thunder and lightning and everything. I was praying that we do it. It has happened, but it little delay. So I hope you all will understand and kind of bear with us. I will leave to Tatiana to carry on with the discussion. That's all from my side. Thank you all for being here. I will be there in the discussion. In case of anything from about Jindal University or the Language Center, if you have any queries, I would be very happy to answer them. But let Tatiana carry on with the discussion. Thank you so much, Tatiana. And Professor Vladimir and all
Thank you
of
very
you,
much.
Anna, Nikita, and Vlad.
Thank you, Professor Gopa. Thank you. I'm so happy that finally you managed to join us. It is
Yeah.
it is already a huge achievement, and we are really happy that you are with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Better
you very
late
much.
than never.
Absolutely. It is so relevant. So, explanation of this theme, since we don't have much time, I will just briefly explain the topic which is in store for us for today's discussion. So cultural diplomacy, and then soft power also. So the importance of cultural diplomacy in strengthening the ties between nations cannot be overemphasized. The Indo-Russian relations are a good example in this case, whereby the cultural exchanges have been one of the strongest pillars of cooperation between the two countries. In geopolitical terms, this emphasis can also be viewed through the lens of the soft power that has become an important part of the public diplomacy. In essence, it provides an attractive and non-violent form of power that rests on nations' cultural values and foreign policies. This power has an ability to shape the preferences of others without coercion. This webinar aims to discuss the present scenario of cultural diplomacy between India and Russia and main areas of engagement. The participants from both countries will reflect on the importance of soft power for enhancing cooperation and mutual understanding between two nations, adding their personal perspectives to the discourse. Now, let me start with the first question, and let me address it to Anna. Yeah, we should start with the definition. Yeah.
Okay, of course. So
yeah, just a second. I haven't even let me first outline the question itself, right? So we will start with the definition of the soft power. We will start with the basics. So Anna, can you please elaborate how can we define the soft power and how it influences the bilateral relations between the countries like India and Russia? Go ahead, Anna.
okay, thank you for the question. I'm sorry for interruption. So I'd like to start that with one statement that today in the world there are so many ways in which it is uncertain place than it was before, and violent extremism is on the rise, as we know. And around the world, India and Russia, they face risks associated with fragile and conflict-affected states. And also, it is very important that large numbers of unemployed young people are at risk of radicalization. And so against this background, countries will have to think about how to best maintain and develop the full range of its strategic assets, including military and diplomatic resources, and of course, soft power. That's why it's so important. And how can we define it? A country's soft power, it is ability to make friends and influence people without using military power, hard power. And the purpose of demonstrating soft power is to create positive image of the country in order to attract attention in various areas of cooperation. So the potential of India's soft power, I think, is going to increase its authority on the world stage and is an integral part of its culture, political values, and moral foreign policy, everything which reflects this Joseph Nye's main sources of soft power. And thus, through this soft power, India seeks to improve its image abroad, overcome or compensate its lack of hard power, and reduce international concerns about India's growth as a world power, attract foreign investment, interact with the Indian diaspora, and invite foreign tourists to visit. Also, I would like to emphasize that interaction with Indian diaspora is the priority of Russian government, and the Indian diaspora actually, they are often the main sources of displaying Indian culture. And Indian diaspora contributes also to the rapid development of Russian Far East. Besides, I would like to emphasize three images of the soft power of India in Russia. I think it will be very interesting. The first one, it is the female image. It is associated usually with Oriental exoticism, philosophical, religious teaching, practices, music, cinema, dance, etc., so food. And the second is male image. It is associated with Mahatma Gandhi, with his nonviolent movement, with multi-ethnic democracy. And the third one, the last one, is emerging image associated with the development of electronic technology, fashion, media, movies, etc. So in conclusion, I would like to say that relations between India and Russia, they have acquired a new character and increased level of cooperation in almost all areas we can imagine of bilateral relations. It can be also politics, security, defense, trade, and economics, and especially culture. So relations between India and Russia, they are of global importance because of their role in achieving global strategic stability, modernization, and of course, finally, the use of soft power assets is aimed at supporting the political and economic interaction between our countries. And especially, it helps with cooperation on Russian Far East. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for laying out such a promising and optimistic foundation for our today's discussion. And you rightly highlighted the multidimensional nature of Indo-Russian bilateral ties. So many areas these relations have covered so far and will continue covering. So thanks a lot, and let me address the next question to Divyanshu. And this will be as following. So Divyanshu, Joseph Nye, the American political scientist who popularized the term soft power in his book in 1990, once mentioned that the soft power can never replace the hard power. Can the soft power become efficient by itself, or does it always need to be backed by the hard power? Has an optimal balance been reached between hard and soft powers in case of India and Russia? Yes, the floor is yours, Divyanshu.
Thank you, Professor. Good morning and Dobro to everyone present. It's nice to be here, first of all, and getting a chance to share my views on an indeed important topic. I feel that the cases of India and Russia and Indo-Russia are very interesting ones. India for long has been a soft power giant. Today, India has a huge diaspora living and working in every corner of the world. Indian cuisine, dressing, and even festivals can be observed in almost every country. Most notably, the Hare Krishna sect, as well as the Art of Living Foundation, has well-established links worldwide. India is not an internationally utilized official language, but it still remains important in different nations. uh, among enthusiasts. However, despite having credentials like India's, like world's second largest army by numbers, India still is considered limited in its hard power capabilities. And generally, it is believed that India's interests are limited to regional affairs, that is, in the Indian subcontinent. India wants to be a blue water force, but the truth is that it will take some time for this to become a reality. It is an often debated notion that India's soft power is not being fully utilized, as India cannot persuade nations or influence them to act the way India might like, just because the population of the other nation might be interested in Bollywood, Taj Mahal, or would like to dip their fingers in exquisite Indian cuisine. On the other hand, I feel Russia's case is opposite in my. Russia not only has immense hard power capabilities in the post-Soviet region, but in the recent year, we have seen a widening sphere of influence. This was clearly visible in Syria, where the capability for rescuing the presidential regime from being toppled has strengthened Russia's image in the entire West Asia, as well as has changed the dynamics with even Israel and Turkey. Coming back to South Asia, however, Russia is majorly a defense and technology exporter today. We see this in case of Bangladesh, Vietnam, even now in Pakistan. And as we all know, the strongest pillar of Indo-Russia ties too for long has been defense. Post-dissolution of Soviet Union, we have observed a gap in the Indo-Russian ties, following which elements like student exchanges, tourism, and people-to-people contact has dropped significantly. If we try to look for Russian restaurants in Delhi today, the task will be tougher than imagined. On the other hand, if I were to search Indian products in Russia, in realm of technology, let's say, the result would be pretty abysmal. So there is indeed a gap between the soft power and hard power capabilities, as well as the methods of practice of these powers of India and Russia. And in case of Indo-Russia ties, this gap can be really observed in some aspects. And there is a lot that needs to be done for finding an optimal balance. This is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Divyanshu, for highlighting the gaps, the existing gaps, and also the room for the space for improvement. Yes, this is of course a good sign for all of us, and just to know the direction, which way we should follow in terms of developing these bilateral relations in the constructive way. So thank you very much once again. My next question would be to Vlada. Vlada, can you please briefly explain to us what have been the strongest pillars of the cultural ties between India and Russia since the Soviet era until present?
Could you please allow me to show my demonstration, my presentation, I mean?
Shubham is not with us, or this. There should be particular rights for that, right? Special rights for being able to share the screen.
There's a share screen button on down, so with an arrow. So you just put that one, click on that one, and then share it.
Thank you, but organizer restricted the rights of demonstration.
Yes, Shubham. Shubham, can you sort it out?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Shubham, can you just direct Vlada to share her screen? Vlada, I think if you go to down your computer panel, you will see a green button with a share screen thing.
Do you see my presentation?
Yes,
Perfect.
yes, yes.
Perfect.
Okay, and one of the main pillars is, of course, governmental support. It means that all projects and events are mainly initiated by governmental bodies, by officials, and there are special institutions like 5 Russian cultural centers in 5 Indian cities, or Indian Cultural Center in Moscow. And besides, there are special cultural agreements between 2 states. And the second pillar is so-called people diplomacy, meaning that these events, they are aimed at promotion of ties between nations, and to create connectivity and friendship between people. And of course, it means language cooperation and providing language courses. And for example, approximately 700 students in India are learning Russian in India, or also Indian Cultural Center in Moscow provides special courses of Hindi and also yoga courses for Russian students. And the festivals and various cultural events play a significant role here, because there are a huge variety of them. For example, Namaste Russia Festival of India in Russia, or the Year of Literature, which was conducted in Russia, and literary works of both states were demonstrated there. And for example, Indian International Center creates a lot of various events like theater exhibitions and even cuisine, dance, music events. For example, in 2019, four Indian groups visited several Russian regions and presented their performances. The next pillar is cooperation at youth policy level. It implies that these measures and steps are oriented mainly at youth and young people. Of course, it includes students exchange programs. For example, India has educational exchange programs with more than 50 countries, including Russia. And these programs, they encompasses exchanges of students, scholars, researchers, and joint seminars, workshops. And another example is that at present, approximately 15,000 of Indian students are studying in Russia, primarily in medicine and mathematics. Also, India provides a lot of scholarships and fellowships for students who are willing to study Hindi or just study in India. And forums and academic events take place also, like Youth Mathematics Olympiad, or Sanskrit and Indological Studies in India, Russia, and Neighborhood Countries Conference in Moscow. And to my mind, the fourth pillar is that both states are multi-ethnic, and therefore cooperation might be developed not only at national level, but also at level of of ethnic minorities. For example, in Soviet Russia, Central Asian republics supported very close ties with India, and and after dissolution of the USSR, also relations of Russia and as well as India, these Central Asian republics, are crucial, and therefore cooperation might be developed this attention to this aspect. And moreover, Buddhism is one of other examples, because Russian Buddhists, they, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, they started to conduct a lot of trips in Indian holy places, and visited Buddhist temples. So I think so this question, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlada, so much for bringing about so many different aspects of cultural relations between India and Russia. While listening to you, I was thinking about the interest towards each other's cultures are really huge on the part of Russians and on the part of Indians. So I think these cultural relations, they should be further enhanced, and this interest just should be nurtured, brought to the higher levels, and they should be more intensified cultural exchanges between two countries. So this is the way forward. And also, I would like to mention that if you have questions to the participants, please write them in the chat box, and then I will possibly collect them and address them to our distinguished participants. If you can also specify the name to whom you would like to address your question. So this is the chat box, and this is also the opportunity for our audience to ask the questions if there are any. Yeah. So let me proceed with the next question. This question would be addressed to Anna, and this would be related to Russian President Vladimir Putin. In particular, Vladimir Putin and his leadership qualities are very popular among the Indian youth, but Russian culture is not widely present in the modern day India. There is an apparent gap in the people-to-people interaction between two countries. How this can be addressed in your opinion, Anya?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think it is important to start with Vladimir Putin, who it is and why he is popular, yeah, in among the Indian youth. So first of all, I would like to say that Vladimir Putin is arguably the most popular, the most famous Russian that anyone knows, especially in India. I think one cannot know any Russian people, but one definitely knows Vladimir Putin. So his name today is almost a brand. And Putin has created his public image of an athletic and tough guy outdoors by showing off his physical capabilities and engaging in different dangerous activities. But of course, this kind of photography or videos, they are part of public relations approach that cultivates the superhero image. So why he is popular amongst Indian youth, I think it is connected somehow with this second approach I mentioned before about Mahatma Gandhi, about his inner strength and determination and independence. Of course, they are very different, but in a way we can look at these different qualities that are somehow common for them. And next, my point will be addressed to relationship between India and Russia. And I think their relationships are rooted in history and mutual trust, actually. It is a strategic relationship and partnership that was stood the test of time, and actually it enjoys support of both countries, as was mentioned before too. And good relations with Delhi, they remain important for Moscow. Why? Just because it doesn't have many friends right now, of course, and it has been sanctioned a lot by Europe and by the US, and India offers an option, a retraining that it cannot be a party to any economic sanctions against Russia, and India is a key market for Russian goods and military equipment, of course. So India strengthens and expands its relations with other key countries too. But we can also notice a lot of visits of Vladimir Putin to India that demonstrate the importance of Russia to India. And also the question of integration of cultures, that what was asked, and individual communications between the countries, between our countries. It is often addressed by bilateral ties in my mind in the field of culture to which Russia and India attach great importance. So, for example, take the cooperation in the field of cinematography. I think it is very developing industry, and in 2018, 7 new Russian movies were shown actually in New Delhi and Mumbai, and representatives of the Russian film industry regularly take part in such festivals in India. And so I think we cannot say that integration of cultures is quite weak, but it is evident that, of course, it's not full, it's not very good, and it still develops and increases from day to day. And furthermore, direct contacts in the field of culture on this interregional level are also expanding. And despite all of these points regarding culture that I made, I cannot help but notice that Russian people are rarely have any ties with Indian people, friends or other relations. Just from my surrounding, yes, from my relatives, friends, etc. And the question of why it happens is quite controversial, as it includes a lot of reasons and explanations, starting with Russian history, for example, of isolation of people during the USSR, maybe, and their reluctance to learn languages. Of course, it's not very big right now, this reluctance. Yes, it's beginning to disappear. But also, I think what plays a role here also maybe prejudice and biases of a person. It's not regardless of any nation. Yeah. The solution, to my mind, lies in strengthening cooperation and organizing more events, such as Vlada mentioned before, that could give space to communicate for Russians and Indian diasporas in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, so much for your answer, for your response, and bringing your personal perspectives. I can feel that you are personally interested in that, and you would wish to contribute personally to improve people-to-people interactions between two countries, right? Have I
Yes, of
received
course.
have I received your message correctly? Yes, and you mentioned in the beginning that despite not so wonderful image of Russia, which exists nowadays, right? Politically, geopolitically speaking, still India has been able so far to maintain the strategic autonomy. And India has not changed its attitude towards bilateral relations, right? So I think this is very important going forward. And yeah, in terms of people-to-people interactions, definitely this is the area for concern, I should say. And what can we do about it? How we can improve this? And I think one of the way to go about it is to enhance mutual understanding between two countries, right? To inform people from both countries, and maybe to clear their doubts, to rectify their misperceptions, misunderstandings, right? So this is the way forward. Probably this could be one of the reasons why these interactions are not up to the mark. My next question would be, thank you, Anna, once again. It has been wonderful. So, Vladimir Genrikhovich, this my next question would be to you, and it is bear with me, it is quite lengthy, but I will try my best to make it yeah,
I'm sorry, Tatiana, I shall interrupt you just for a second. Please, for the note for the organizer, I want to show my demonstration as well, but I'm banned to do that. Could he allow? So sorry for interrupting you, just to save time.
No, that's fine. That's important. This is the technical aspect, which is very important.
Yeah, Shubham, can you please?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. You have the rights to share your screen.
Oh, now yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Let me first put forward
Yes.
the question to you,
Sure.
Vladimir Genrikhovich, Professor Vladimir Sherov. There is an enormous opportunity for cooperation between India and Russia in the sphere of science and technology. The Philippines, for example, has recently placed a contract for purchasing BrahMos missiles that have been developed by the joint Indo-Russian collaboration. Many other countries also expressed their interest in this regard. Apart from the defense technology, that has been the strongest pillar of the Russian-Indian relationship, the two countries have a huge potential in areas like shipbuilding, civil nuclear technology, artificial intelligence, and pharmacy. Can we say that the science and technology sphere will become an area where the soft power will gain a foothold in the future? Which steps can be taken in this regard?
Thank you very much, Tatiana. I'm very afraid of using too much time for that because I prepared some presentation for this sake. And of course, great thanks for initiating this webinar and inviting me and our students. So can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
I hope yes.
Yes, fortunately.
So, of course, India and Russia have strong basis for cooperation in the science. These are big countries which want to be self-reliant in many spheres. And I must remark that Indian civilization is much older than Russian one, but contemporary India looks younger than Russia. Russian population is older, and in science and technology, Russia's competitive advantages are still largely based on Soviet scientific heritage. Indians are younger, and India tries to catch up with the leaders of the modern world. Russia has lost some positions in the 90s, but now also trying to catch up and to keep what it has at least and develop further. So two countries have no contradictions and can help each other in the spheres of their competence, and science is one of the key such spheres in the contemporary world. There is a strong legal basis for the bilateral scientific and technical cooperation of the two countries. I shall not read the list of documents, just to say that it exists. And in the sphere of organization, there were also many steps taken during last decades. I shall mention, for example, the long-term program of science and technology cooperation between Russia and India, which has just finished last year. And the results are quite tangible. About approximate figures here only, about 500 bilateral research and development projects have received financial support. More than 1,500 joint publications were prepared. About 10,000 scientific contacts established, 3,000 exchange visits happened, and around 100 joint seminars and workshops were concluded during this period. Within the same program, dozens of institutions and laboratories of Russia and India have taken part, and sometimes they arrange joint centers. According to the data of embassies of two countries, this list includes centers in seismology in New Delhi, biotechnology in Allahabad, powder metallurgy and new materials in Hyderabad, production of polyvaccines in Buladashar, if I can speak it correctly, and hydrates research in Chennai. But to tell you frankly, when I addressed these titles and tried to Google them, some of these mentioned institutions, I didn't find them in the web. So it shows some problems which exist in this sphere. Bureaucracy not always gives birth to healthy creatures. However, some mechanisms do function and function properly. I would name first of all and most of all the cooperation of Russian scientific foundations and Department of Indian Science and Technologies of the Indian government, which cooperate in granting support for bilateral cooperative projects in science. So this is just a screenshot of an ad of Russian Scientific Foundation about these Russian Indian research proposals invited, call for projects. It's interesting that its projects are accepted in various research fields, including smart transport and telecommunications, smart healthcare and medicine, new materials, plant and animal biotechnology, clean energy, artificial intelligence, safe food, but not in humanities and social sciences. It's not the first time that it has taken place. This is the first and final lines of the table of the results, of the proposals received under 2017 call. And I just attract your attention that these are really bilateral applications which are submitted by representatives of various regions of India and Russia, and in a really broad spectrum of science and technologies. And there were 179 applications that year. 2 years later, 248 applications were registered, and out of them, 43 projects were supported by these Russian and Indian foundations. And it's a great result. We can't expect that all these projects will lead to breakthroughs in the respective spheres of science and technologies, but they, sorry, they help to elaborate a network of scientific personal contacts, new spheres of cooperation, and nobody knows where the great results will be reached in the future. Of course, the past has experience of and examples of quite notorious results in mutual cooperation. In the Soviet time, the space flight arranged by, sorry for my mistake here, by Rakesh Sharma, and India's first satellite Aryabhata was launched also to the space in cooperation with the USSR. Nowadays, the cooperation in this sphere continues, though India is very self-reliant already in this sphere, launching rockets to the moon and even to the surroundings of Mars. But in this sphere of preparing future cosmonauts, or as in India you call it, gaganauts, the cooperation goes on. It's just one of the examples. Just in March of this year, the group of future Indian gaganauts have finished 1 year training in the Russian Cosmonaut Training Center. And later, probably they will use this experience for arranging the similar systems of preparing gaganauts for the work in the space. Some other spheres of mutual interest where Russia and India cooperate is, of course, the science and technology in exploration of minerals. And in this context, business cooperation matters a lot. And for example, ONGC, largest India company in this sphere, has a 20% share in the Sakhalin-1 project. Russian corporation Rosatom is continuing expanding of nuclear power station in Kudakolam. Russia supports India in its search in Arctic and Antarctic zones. A bit cold, but Indians are strong and brave. So another sphere where cooperation can lead to interesting results, though it's not intense yet, as far as I know, is agriculture and selection and genetics. For example, in St. Petersburg, we have a Vavilov Institute of Plant Genetic Resources, which possesses one of the richest global banks of seeds, so genetic materials. And it's possible to use it to support the solving of safe and sufficient food supply problem for growing Indian population as well. Naturally, IT is a sphere where both India and Russia have a lot of specialists and good results. And artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, clever buildings, and so on are just a small amount of spheres where cooperation is possible. But of course, India is well very self-reliant in this sphere, and Russia as well, and cooperation is not so intense, though it exists. But let me bring such a personal example. My friend and friend by university is now working in California, and in Sony Music Corporation, together with a large number of Indians. So Russian and Indian IT specialists compete, cooperate, and relax together in California. Why not to cooperate at home? What can be done to improve science and technology cooperation? I think that countries should increase financial support of fundamental science, commercialize the results where possible, get rid of bureaucratic barriers, in particular in Russian side is overcome the fear of spies in the sphere of science and technologies. And of course, use new possibilities of online meetings, which the pandemic has given to us occasionally. And maybe to arrange some new super project attracting attention of public and new young scientists to this sphere. Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry for being out of time limit.
Thank you, Professor Sheriff. That has been brilliant. Thank you so much for your elaborated answer, because we got used to the notion that Russian-Indian relations are based on the military supplies, on the defense. But now you have highlighted and also illustrated so many other areas of cooperation which have been developed to a certain extent, in some cases a greater extent, in some cases lesser extent. Also, I would like to thank you on the part of audience and on my behalf, of course, for giving us statistical data and documentary evidence that have proved your statements. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I interrupt here, please? Thank you, Vladimir, Professor Vladimir, for giving us this statistics. However, I have one kind of, I won't say argument, but one idea that I would bring forth. Russia and India have been doing cooperation on science and technology, but now I think perhaps it's time to bring in culture and language and other things, which Tatiana is brought to JGU. She has brought Russian language to our students. But now I think at a more cultural level or a more personal level, people like Divyanshu and young people from our country should interact more. And especially now that we are entering into a digital world where things are happening digitally and things are becoming easier for young people to communicate. I think it's perhaps time for us to take a more, a constructive or positive approach towards sharing our cultural views, like Divyanshu mentioned in his talk about food and other things. Even Russian salad, if you go to any five-star hotel, you may not get Russian food, but you will definitely get Russian salad. Now, the thing is that it is perhaps time for us to interact and make this a bigger umbrella, which is coming under science and technology, to make it more human. Like, because human beings are the carriers of ideas, and cultural things and language is the best bridge, I think, to make a connection between people. And I think both our culture are very, very ancient culture. So we have many similarities. If you see even the dolls and other things which you find Russia and so famous, we find it in our country also. There are a lot of similarities between our cultures, but however, as individuals, I think as we have not, explored that area. Perhaps it is time in this digital world to share our cultural ideas. And I encourage people like Divyanshu and Anna and Vlada to communicate more, to interact more, so you can share and make this space a much more healthier and enjoyable space for all of us. That's my take.
Thank you, Professor Goka. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I absolutely agree with you. Thank you.
Wonderful words indeed. Next question would be to Hariharan. Hariharan, there were some scholarly works on the Russian soft power in India and vice versa during the Soviet era. However, there has been insufficient research work on this topic during the last decade. Don't you think that this area requires more attention from the academic community? Wouldn't it also contribute to the promotion of cultural diplomacy between two countries?
Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you everyone for providing me this opportunity to speak about cultural diplomacy and relations between India and Russia. So to answer the question, yes, I think one must look into academia and further research must be done, especially as uh, uh, Ms. Gopanayak had spoken earlier to, at the cultural level, because a lot of scientific and technological exchanges have been done in the past, and it's strictly related to military. That means it indicates a certain level of hard power rather than soft power. Even if academic work is considered as a literature, still since being strictly defined as a science sector, so a scientific sector, I think that would kind of push aside to a hard power stance rather than improving cultural relation as such. And to be honest, yes, works have been taken place in academia before emergence of modern Russia, and not even period of Soviet times, even in imperial Russia period as well. In those times, most of the works were carried out by Indo-Russians who were focusing upon Indian culture and studying the works of Gandhi. And as uh, Anna said earlier, that Gandhi would probably be the most famous Indian, later to Putin being the most famous Russian. So that's and they have studied, and interest in Gandhi was one of the primary reason about knowing about India and the great power politics between Britain and Russia back then. So was also a reason for studies on India. But as the emergence of USSR took place, studies shifted from Indologist cultural related aspect to more of a political stance. So, and this was primarily due to the Cold War again between USSR and the US. And again, it was focused not because they have to improve relations with countries, but to uh, create a sphere of influence. So, and this can be counted as a soft power, but soft power was not defined back then, but then can be counted as soft power. But most of the actions it took aspect. Uh, Works by Anatova and Welsin Nikolov have been one of the prominent works in respect to USSR, whereas they have established institutions such as Institute of Oriental Studies and Soviet studies with various Indian universities. But the thing is, what these universities were focusing upon the geopolitical aspect rather than the cultural diplomacy itself. Most of the cultural diplomacy was happening through sharing of content rather than academic studies. So yes, and also there was this bureaucrat within Russian government, that's Karen Brutens. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but then he focused that countries that USSR must shift from focusing upon socialism regime related countries to a third world country. India was a third world country back then. That was it was defined as. So rather than focusing upon premature introduction of socialism, it had to focus upon more about the apoliticalness of the relation. So by focusing on that, USSR had built up ties around various third world countries, even though they were not socialistic enough. And this lacked in US because US was focusing more about free speech and liberal values, whereas USSR was relatively apolitical. And this was again works such as academicians, suggestions from the academicians like these kind of played as soft power between these two countries that led to a basis of relations between these two nations, and that has been carried out till this time as well. But the thing is, the status quo has been changed. Back then, there was three countries fighting for power. That is China, USSR, China in the background, but then USSR and US majorly. And in USSR saw India as a alternative, like at a big brother kind of paradigm on India, and it kind of had a relationship between India and it was India was majorly acted as a buffer state for, in case of relations with China gone sour, or leveraging Indian relations as a means to reach out to third world countries when it comes to US. So that has been the key basis for the relationship, and that has been carried out till now. But the thing is, status quo has changed, and Russia and India is now more of an equal partner, and works must be taken up in that sense. And that would and what is lacking is it's more of a defense and defense related research, and rather than cultural research. And shift must be taking place in that end, so that more people would know what Russia is beyond the academic circles that is actually interested in Russia, rather than a common person who's, for example, I would be knowing more about Russia if I'm researching about it and because I'm studying international relations. But for a layman from at least within India, they wouldn't know what Russia is beyond a distant defense partner who is financing, sorry, not financing, my bad, who is supporting our defense capabilities through the sales. So it's more of a transactional exchange rather than a cultural exchange. It's not intimate enough as there before. So I think, yes, academic work must be taken place more, so that more people from the cultural humanities section of academia within the country must have a general awareness of what Russia is beyond the usual cultural momentous that's carried upon between countries like dolls and all those things. More about what Russian is, what Russian value is, that must be learned upon. So yes, this is my argument so far. Yeah, thank you.
Can I just give a rejoinder to Hariharan? Hariharan, it's very nice to listen to you because you are an international affairs student. But I must tell you, when we were doing our masters, Crime and Punishment was one of the sought after novels that we read. And the person who could make sense of crime and punishment was a kind of considered, a genius, intellectual capability, because it's a thick novel and like it isn't based on the Russian context. However, when I was reading Crime and Punishment, what occurred to me that all the Russian translation of novels or whatever, it came through English to us, right? But why can't we create a bridge among us? Why can't there be a bridge between Indian languages and Russian language, so that we kind of don't lose anything in translation? And that's my challenge to Tatiana. If you're teaching Russian, take their mother tongue also. And like Hariharan, like your mother tongue is different, Divyanshu's mother tongue is different. So even like greetings, like a simple greetings, if you can make it in, if Hariharan, I'm not wrong, if your mother tongue is Tamil and Divyanshu's is Hindi or Haryanvi or whatever. So, we can start from translating that little greetings in my mother tongue in the Russian instead of going through that bridge of English, where we could be missing many things. So that would add a lot to, the cultural exchange that is happening between individuals, because till now we are depending on, some Western power to establish the relation. As the dynamics is based on the military, whether the India is a buffer state or whether it's not, or whether we can take on the role. But that can be as simple, coded like, person to person, simple in languages. And I think another misconception in India-Russia relation is perhaps Russia is such a big country and so is India, but we have so many languages and Russia has perhaps only one. Tatiana, correct me if I'm wrong. So then that perhaps they are more inclusive than us, and we are, we are more accepting towards other languages because we anyway have to accept our neighbor who speaks another language or something like that. But in that bargain, also what we have done is we have given a lot of importance to English. But now perhaps it's the time to make the connection between the languages that are intimate to us. It could be English and the Russian languages, and that's much easier for us than them, I guess. So that's my only take on this. I request Tatiana, and I thank her from the core of my heart, to bring in Russian language to our university and to create a platform where we can discuss all these things. And I hope then we can have much more of these interactions. They do not have to be so formal, and they do not have to be so methodical as such. We can have very casual kind of a conversation also between students and professors, and that will perhaps help us in building a bridge between us and Russian without the bureaucracy, I guess. Thank you. That's my take.
Nicely said, Professor Gopa. Nicely, nicely said. And you're right. It was from the bottom of your heart. It was absolutely. There is no doubt about that. Hariharan, you would like to mention something because your hand is raised. So with
Professor, I would like to agree with what Ms. Naik said. I mean, the thing is, I studied short stories of Tolstoy in high school in English rather than Russian. The translation was in English. What is the English interpretation of the works of Tolstoy? And we know that, but we wouldn't know what is the Russian interpretation because the culture values would be different and we wouldn't know, it's completely foreign to them. So it's a Western-centric kind of interpretation that's being taught to us. So that is there. And also one more thing, she kind of reminded a point that I missed out in my talk earlier. So the one thing is, I think Russia should, as she said earlier, Russia should take a page on American cultural diplomacy, that they took advantage because Indian relations were so before. We were more leaning towards USSR, even though it was non-aligned. So the English made a key bridge for us to kind of relate with the Western values, Hollywood, culturally, everything. But what we wouldn't know anything A to Z about what's happening within Russia. So I think academicians should also focus on that, like how to make, that bridge to happen, So I don't know, it might be language itself or any other medium, but some sort of academic work should come out on that. So that's also another point.
Thank you, Hariharan. Thank you. Professor Gopa, you mentioned Crime and Punishment of Dostoevsky. But it is fantastically difficult even for us Russians to digest. So for foreign readers, including Indians, it would be very, very challenging to get to the bottom of it. Yes, because he was the complicated character himself, right? With very complicated life. And then it is difficult even to grasp what he was trying to convey in the first place, right? But once you are able, then you mentioned you feel like a hero. You feel like a hero because all these like psychological spider nets, which are there. Once you're able to get to the bottom, then it's a huge deal. Thank you so much for your contribution in this sense as well. And also, of course, to Hariharan, because it's obvious that you conducted a thorough research before making your presentation. Professor Sheriff, let me address you once again regarding NGOs and so for example, China, if we take the example of China has used various NGOs and Confucius Institutes all over the world to promote its own culture. And according to some scholars, Russia also intends to promote its culture among students and professionals by introducing educational and cultural programs. Interestingly, this was also highlighted in the revised foreign policy concept of Russia that was released quite recently in the year 2016. How can this strategy be further expanded? Professor Sheriff.
Yeah. Thank you, Tatiana. I shall try to be shorter this time with my presentation. Nevertheless, it exists. So please be tolerant. So you are right. I looked through this foreign policy concept of Russia, thanks to your question, and found these words that Russia should strengthen its cultural role, promote the transition of the Russian language in the world, and to promote cultural identity of the peoples of Russia, and of course, Russian education and research. listening to the wonderful remark of Professor Gapanayak, I have to answer by this slide. There are more than 100 languages in Russia. So Russia and India are both multi-ethnic countries. Of course, Russia is much smaller by population, but it's also very multi-ethnic. Of course, the Russian language dominates, but nevertheless, other languages exist and function. Russia is also a multi-confessional country as well as India, though the mix is different. Orthodox Christianity prevails, but we have a lot of Muslims in Russia. We have Buddhists, Judaïsts, and the representatives of our other confessions. So a lot of similarities between the two countries exist. And preparing this presentation, I found an interesting comparison of some Russian architectural pieces of the past, yeah, even somehow resembling by exterior and even in interior. The religions are different, but some features have parallels. I even found the comparison of Sanskrit with the Russian language. I didn't bring it here to slides, but I want to quote that one professor from India, a specialist in Sanskrit, visiting Russia in 2 weeks, get rid of the translator because he started to understand Russian. And he said, and he wrote an article on that Russian language has a lot of similarities with Sanskrit by pronunciation and by its structure as well. So a lot of common roots exist. Of course, in more contemporary period, 19th century, 20th century, already mentioned Mahatma Gandhi and Tolstoy exchanged letters devoted to philosophical ideas of humanity, yeah. And of course, we can't escape mentioning great artist and philosopher Nicholas Roerich, who lived many years in India and had a lot of personal communication with Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi. This is a photo showing them. So the tradition of a cultural exchange and mutual influence is quite deep. Concerning the Confucius Institutes and its analog, yes, Russia has centers of science and culture. It's not named after some cultural person in Russia because there are plenty of them and there will be a competition. But anyway, it works in the similar way as Confucius Institutes from China or Goethe Institutes from Germany or British Council and whatever. So it has its representatives offices in Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, and Trivandrum. And they're engaged in the variety of spheres of promoting Russian education and culture. Of course, the Russian language courses are among the most important ones, but also its organization of international conferences, of art exhibitions, promotion of Russian movies, not only Soviet, but also contemporary ones. And of course, admission of Russian students to Russian higher education institutions. Besides that, they have schools of Russian classical ballet, chess academy, and even two of them, Alekhine and Botvinnik, chess schools, Eisenstein Film Club, so piano classes, art schools, vocal classes, and so on. But the main sphere here, of course, it's education. And annually, for many years, the fear of Russian higher education institutions is arranged in India by this center. Last year, it took place online, but it had its also advantages because more than 11,000 people could attend these virtual presentations of 10 to 15 Russian higher education institutions representatives, describing the peculiarities, details of attending, of submitting applications to study in Russia, and some general features of Russian education. I must say that Russia is, of course, not on the very top of ratings of numbers of foreign students, but the number of foreign students in Russia grows, and it's somehow on the level of France and Germany. India is not on the very top. It's number 13 by the number of newcomers as of 2019, around 2,000 applicants, and the new students came. But all in all, the total number of students from India in Russia 3 years ago was 21,000. And this number grows. 2018, it grew 37%. And this pace of growth was more intense than the growth of the number of Chinese students, which is really interesting because we have a lot of Chinese students in Russia. Russia has competitive advantages in some particular spheres of higher education. Of course, medical sciences are quite known and popular among Indian students. But we have more and more students in physics, IT, space technologies, mineral exploration, and so on. Of course, it has such competitive advantages as access to Russian culture, new personal networks, and it's less expensive than Western education. So most of students study on the commercial basis. And last year, only 88 Indian students were granted the chance to study free of charge in Russia. But commercial education varies by cost from about a bit more than $1,000 a year in the provincial cities, up to $8,000 US a year in Moscow or St. Petersburg. Of course, I have to say a couple of words of our own St. Petersburg State University. Is the oldest university in Russia, founded in 1724. It has now about 30,000 students studying in 477 programs. And among other things, we have the Faculty of Oriental Studies. And there in the Faculty of Philology, about 80 languages are taught, including Sanskrit, Hindi, Bengali, and Telugu. So welcome. Welcome to Russia. And maybe I add one more besides the presentation. I mean that we have to use the capacities of social networks, which are great and which allow this personal-to-personal communication and networking, which Professor Gopal Nayak has stressed so emotionally and in a great manner. I appreciate this willingness to promote this personal ties, and this is the best way to do that, by social networks, by online communication, because nowadays we are limited in other ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Genrikhovich Sherov, for your brilliant presentation, for your wonderful answer, for bringing about educational aspects and providing so much of valuable data to us in relation to that. Thank you once again. It is really appreciated. I just would like to make it clear. We started with the delay. So now we were supposed to finish our session. First of all, I'm not sure how it would be possible technically to continue, but I would suggest probably we should stay together for another 15 minutes. How about that?
Tatiana, I think Shubham, can you please confirm that we have another 15 minutes for question answers or something like that? Shubham, confirm karo kijiye, please.
And Nikita hasn't presented yet.
Yes, ma'am.
No, we has not a queue. Yeah. Yes.
और 15 मिनट हमें मिल सकती है ना?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. So I think he's confirmed that we can go ahead with. So I think we should listen to Nikita because he is waiting patiently.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
Professor Vladimir, for that very, very informative cultural and linguistic background of Russia. I mean, that that explains, I mean, we are so naive in India about Russia. We only think that there's one Russian language. So anyway, without wasting time, let's listen to Nikita first, and then perhaps we can come back to more interaction. And I sincerely thank and would like to give Tatiana the responsibility of taking these dialogues and conversations further, and it should not be a one-time event, right?
Sure, sure,
Thank you.
sure. Nikita, yes, thank you. Thank you for waiting impatiently for your turn. My question to you would be, it is a little bit controversial, but quite exciting at the same time. Should the media place more emphasis on covering the bilateral visits of high-ranking officials from both countries? Do you consider the media as such to be an efficient tool in strengthening the ties between two countries? Go ahead, Nikita, please.
Switch on your mic. Nikita.
Yeah, now I hope I can be heard well, right?
Yes. Yes.
So good. Time's running shortly, so let's do it. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to share my thoughts on the media relevance in the soft power issues with the colleagues from India and with the audience today. So I'll try to be short as possible. So I should say that these questions, they are not simple ones, and there might be people who strongly disagree with what I will further say, but I would be happy to hear your questions and your opinions after my little speech. We will have time left. So let's start with the first part of the question. Should the media place more emphasis on covering the bilateral visits of high-ranking officials from both countries? And the short answer, my short answer is that no, and it is almost useless. Simply put, in behavioral terms, soft power is something like attractive power. And in terms of resources, soft power resources are the assets that produce such attraction. And now let's consider these bilateral meetings of high officials as the assets that produce such attraction. Imagine the leaders of the governments came on a meeting in Russia or India, whatever, to discuss the state of the world, geopolitics, to reflect on the existing problems and the role of cooperation between our countries in solving them. And now after this news, honestly, who of you are so attracted that he wants to know more about Russia, to know more about the Indian culture? And in that way, media that produces news about Major General from Russia coming to visit to India, it's not an efficient tool of strengthening ties between people of two countries, first and most. And do I consider then the media to be inefficient tool of stating soft power? Yeah, absolutely not. It mostly depends on the media we're talking about. And a quick example, I was struggling with the econometrics course previous year, and things were so bad, I didn't know what to do. And then I found the YouTube channels explaining econometrics stuff. And those channels, as you may guess, they were run by Indian students. And it's fair to say that actually I'm here today, thankfully, to the Indian YouTube guides. And now I believe that people in India, after this incident, they are very smart. And that should mean that they have a good educational system, right? So maybe I should consider the possibilities to go to get education in India, or maybe I will advise my friends to do so. And I believe that thought that came to me that this is actually soft power. Another thing is Bollywood. This media, everyone knows about. So many people love it. Those people who love it, they watch Indian movies, they see that Indian people, they are beautiful, talented, and these people are getting to know the Indian culture better. In that sense, media can create a charming image of a country. And educational channels, good movies, music, all these are the assets that produce such attraction to the country. And these effects allow India to strengthen relations with not only Russia, but with all nations where people watch Bollywood movies. I have talked about good examples of media and creating soft power, but now let's see the example of Russian attitude to the soft power in media. And in Russia, we can see that soft power is understood like something that government does to control the decisions and behavioral of other states without military and economic actions. And when I was searching the Russian sources on the media and the soft power issues, I found this book called The Informational Dimension of Soft Power, wrote by Sergei Mikhailovich Nebrenchin. He's a deputy director of Russian Chamber of Commerce, and he's actually a combat veteran. So it's very interesting. The combat veteran wrote the book on the soft power. I was surprised. And this respected person of my country, he wrote a book on the soft power, and I believe that what he wrote there is majorly correspond to the general idea of soft power in Russian Federation, fortunately. According to him, the soft power is an effective way to deal with the enemy. And the task of soft power is to change the plans and intentions of the enemy to the right direction. I argue this cannot be called a soft power. This is just definition of informational war and propaganda. And informational war have nothing to do with soft power. Soft power creates friends and attract people, and its final product is cooperation, while the informational war is more of a hard power. It separates people. And as long as we confuse these concepts of soft power, informational war, propaganda, we are losing friends on the world stage. So a situation arises that media is even capable of destroying the relation between countries. And therefore, we need to develop efficient media, not the state ones, but the private ones. And as example, the Telegram is a soft power of Russian Federation, and the Russia Today TV channel, if you're familiar or not, it's not. In that sense, we have to learn a lot from our Indian friends, and this will surely help to develop stronger relations between our countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. That has been quite illuminating. And you brought this differentiation, very, very important, very relevant between soft power and information warfare and propaganda. So when we deal with different media sources, we should definitely take a critical approach towards them, right? And then we need to strive hard and search for reliable sources, which could be quite challenging nowadays. Thank you so much once again. And probably I would suggest we are about to wrap up our discussion. Maybe some comments, some questions, some final thoughts from the audience, from the participants, and then we would probably actually we have much more information. We have prepared much more detailed information, but then I think we are just running out of time. So this is let us look at it from the optimistic perspective. Once we have the materials which are left, that means that we need to continue the discussion, and we need to bring these questions which are left to our further interactions. Yes. It is in India. It is about to be a lunch. It is a lunchtime actually. So thank you so much for still being with us despite this timing. So probably we would call it a day for today. We will wrap up. We will finish the discussion, but then we should continue in the near future. Yeah. Because this technology allows us to do that. So this is probably one of the few probably the only good thing from the pandemic, that it showed us that these opportunities are there and they can be explored.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I must say, Nikita, I think you have showed us a very nice part of the private players in media, but then we have the other side of the thing. Also, there are a lot of fake news in India which are coming up and kind of responsible for many disasters that we are facing today. So, I think a knife has two sides to it. We have to be very critical and very careful about who is producing what, and it all depends on, you know, how it is being consumed by people. Too much control is not necessary, and too much freedom is also sometimes harmful. So with that note, and I must thank you, Tatiana, for taking my you know, kind of request, and bringing in such beautiful people from the land of Russia to share ideas with us. And I'm really thankful to all of you for giving us time. And you have been taking this very, very seriously. There was so much preparation and careful planning behind it, but still we had to face some, you know, that's what I should say, technical glitches, which will be there, but I think it's part of the game. Anyway, thank you so much, Professor Vladimir, Anna, Nikita, Vlada, Hariharan, Divyanshu, everyone, and last of all, but not least of all, Tatiana. Keep it up.
May I also have a word? Great thanks to Tatiana for starting this project, and I hope it's not the end. Great thanks to Professor Gopal for your great contribution and very emotional one. I really appreciate and hope we shall see each other more. And great thanks to our students who prepared their presentations. Jivanshu was not able to present, yeah, unfortunately. So, but we listened to him yesterday in the small group in the preparative meeting. It was also valuable. So I think it could be the start of more long-term cooperation than just one event. This is the main result of this meeting, I think. Great thanks to everyone.
Definitely. I mean, I would like to have you more, and Tatiana will be, of course, the bridge between you and us. And, you know, the Sanskrit and the thing, I'm a big fan of our classical literature, which is there in Sanskrit. I would be, I mean, really, I mean, if there can be translations of this text, you know, nothing can be more gratifying than that. And I hope we keep this conversation alive. We keep this person-to-person interaction alive. I mean, it's not, I mean, we have to help ourselves, basically. And as educated people, if we don't help ourselves and we expect the government or some leader to help us, I think that is also sad. You know, we should take up our own cause and fight for it, I guess. And yeah, I mean, we can make this conversation like much more informal and much, you know, much more frequent in the coming days to come.
Thank you, Professor Gopal, once again for your valuable contribution, and for all our guests and speakers. That has been wonderful. Thank you, and have a nice day. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.